And Phil, so talking about security, what are the real challenges that they're coming across with digital projects?
So I think there's a lot of risk involved. There's a ever-changing threat landscape need to keep on top of. The complexity of managing security solutions is very high as well. Typically what we've seen in the past is customers, they want to take security seriously. They're prepared to spend on security, but they typically look at it in point-to-point solutions. So for instance, they want best of breed product A, best of breed product B, etc. And that's fine, but the challenge with that comes with integration and management of those solutions. So for instance, if they detect a breach with one particular technology, they may have to use several other technologies to try and piece together what's actually happened. That takes time. And when you have a breach, obviously time is of the essence.
Yeah. And Spencer, do you see that the necessary skills are there in most organisations to do that work, to integrate the disparate security tools?
I think the challenge here is taking a view of, do I need to have security technology advisors employed directly into my organisation, or is actually the perspective I need is understanding my data strategy and understanding the security levels against the data and organisations around that front. Because most organisations, I don't think they have necessarily the skills in place right now, but I would also argue that they don't really need to. Right now, I'd say security is becoming, it has become such an ever-present concern of a business criticality, as we see weekly, monthly on breaches, that actually now most organisations would never be equipped themselves. So they need to look to suppliers and partners who are well experienced at understanding what's the most sensitive things they need to address, and also are doing it in other organisations. So you always need to retain a certain amount of knowledge in the organisation, which is essential, but that should be more focused around your business requirements and how you need to operate, rather than necessarily underlying technology. So there is definitely a skills, an understanding of the right use of the right skills in organisations.
And I think adding to that is hopefully companies won't be breached. There is a huge possibility that they will be, but hopefully they won't. So they're not necessarily going to have incident response experts on hand. Absolutely. It's like you call them in when you need them.
Yeah. I mean, and also on that side as well is I'd say that I think we mentioned we talked about this earlier, is that prevention was a sort of a buzzword for security for many years. Sense of respond tends to be the conversation at a CIO level I have now. Is that there is an understanding that in all likelihood there's going to be some kind of breach, and it's probably not purely because of the technology. It's more than likely to do with a sort of a human weakness and a human situation. So then it's understanding, how do I sense this breach or potential breach as soon as possible, and then what's my response strategy, both from a business perspective and a technology perspective, especially for those organizations that have very open public-facing brands and stuff like this. They need to then manage that that relationship with whoever their external customers are and stuff like that.
Phil, do you see organizations taking a more holistic approach to their security architecture now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think organisations that have had systems in place for a long time, they've typically taken the approach of bolting security onto those solutions and those technologies already in place, which lends itself to a very tactical approach. So here's a problem, let's fix the problem. What we're seeing now, and discussions we're having with a lot of customers, is taking a more holistic view and looking at the whole security architecture, if you like, as a platform to then build new technologies on top of. So,
and Spencer, what do you think businesses can do to give better visibility of security risk to the business, to board level stakeholders?
The actual importance here is that the business value of being able to talk about how secure you are and how you respond, and giving that digital trust to a lot of, for example, in our organisation as analysts, a lot of the research that we do is understanding the priority that customers have around digital trust now. So it's not just about securing my data. Do I feel that I can trust how you're going to handle it should something go wrong on that front? I think for some organisations they need to have this epiphany moment where they realise they do have to do something now. And so I do think there is a real time right now where IT needs to be seen as something that's not an engine room of the ship. It's as much a part of the rest of the organisation.
It should be an enabler.
Exactly. Yeah.
And talking of handling data, Phil, of course, we've got GDPR looming, coming into force next May. How ready do you think organisations are, and do you feel that they really need some help?
When we talk to customers about GDPR, a lot of them are actually quite a way down that path already because they're doing best practice stuff already. Yeah. They just don't necessarily think of it in that GDPR context. So I think on the whole, people are working towards it, but a lot of organisations are still saying, well, we're going to wait and see. I think when we start to see some enforcement come in, then I think a lot of organisations will then start to take it more seriously.
Just coming on to the services piece, Phil. So what sort of range of services, where do you think people need most help these days?
I think a lot of organisations just do have difficulty, finding the right people who both understand the technology, the business, and the risks associated around that. And that's where service providers, for instance, consultancy organisations, can come in and provide that level of support.
Spencer, Phil, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.